Hello, welcome. I'm so glad you're here. When we picked out my May TBR, I mentioned that May was going to be a crazy month. The first 10 days, I was free and clear. The middle 15 days, I am very busy. And that's where I am right now. I'm kind of in the thick of that. And then the last 5 days, easy breezy. But I am indeed in the very thick of my busy days. We just, the other night, picked up my daughter from her school, brought her back here. The next morning, we drove 4.5, almost 5 hours to go to my son's graduation. Had to drive back an hour to get to relatives to spend the night. And then drove back home the 3 hours to get home. And then took my daughter back to school, which was another hour and another hour to come back. That was yesterday. So lots of time in the heat and in the car with extra heat. But while I was in the car, I started Motherhood, the Second Oldest Profession, which is one of my books that was my mother's. And I'm reading this sort of in honor of my mother. My whole reading year is semi-dedicated to my mother. And this is her book. She loved Erma Bombeck books. And I've read a number of them, like Grass is Always Greener Over the Septic Tank. And If Life is a Bowl of Cherries, Why Is This the Pits? Something like that. Why Are We in the Pits? Most of her books were written in the 70s. And I read them when I was like in high school, probably in the 80s. I read them. This one I have not read. So this is the one I picked to read. This is the one that's been on my 26 and 26 list. I took it in the car with me and read it a little bit here and there. I am a whopping 28 pages in. It's a bunch of essays. Sorry, there's a fly in here. Erma Bombeck was an essayist, humorist, all that kind of. So it's nonfiction. Sorry, this fly is going to drive me nuts. And they are all essays on motherhood. And it has gotten me thinking. The second chapter lists some of the famous TV mothers. Donna of Donna Reed Show, Harriet of Ozzie and Harriet, Barbara, Leave It to Beaver, Shirley of Partridge Family, Marjorie, Make Room for Daddy, Jane, Father Knows Best, and Florence of the Brady Bunch. Like in the first chapter, she's talking about how nobody teaches you how to be a mother. There are no classes. And she gives some examples of what the subject headings would be of classes that a mother would like to take. In this one, she's talking about how unrealistic those TV shows were and how no real-life mother was ever like those TV shows. There are a couple of chapters that have stories of a person and their experience in motherhood. And this one is Frank. And Frank has decided to be a stay-at-home dad. And remember, this is like 83. He's having a tough time with it, being a stay-at-home dad and while trying to write his novel. So things like that. And including the last chapter I read was a mother who is recently divorced and is looking for a job and is being told by someone who is about the same age as her children that she's not qualified for anything. And she's about to have it out. Again, just simple essays on motherhood. These are dated. They are very, very much dated. But they have gotten me thinking that after I read that, I am going to read Meet the Newmans. Now, this is one of those books that's been going around. Everybody's talking about it right now. I haven't heard any reviews yet. I just heard people interested in reading it. So I'm very curious. I have this on audio, and I only have, I think, 10 days to read it. So that one is coming up very soon. It's a big book. It's about the Newmans. They are, for 2 decades, Dell and Dinah Newman and their sons Guy and Shep have ruled television as America's favorite family. Millions of viewers tune in every week to watch them play flawless black and white versions of themselves. But now it's 1964, and the Newmans' idolized apple pie perfection suddenly feels woefully out of touch. Which is exactly what she's talking about here, even though it's the 80s. That people still feel like these shows were so out of touch, but they're still on TV because, reruns. I thought these two would tie in together really well, and I am really curious about this. Some of the behind the scenes, there's still a fly in here, so it's driving me nuts. Some behind the scenes of what it was like on the show and that kind of thing. So I'm really, really excited to read this. Like I said, I started this. I've got the Newmans. But what did I start reading today? And it's not entirely my fault. It's because it's the next book due on my audio, and I want to read it, and it's on my May TBR. So, yes. Now, I started it. I'm on page 16. That's not that bad. But all we've done so far is meet people. We met Kate, who broke up with her girlfriend and is now living in a terrible flat with very loud roommates. That's like the prologue. Because part 1, it says the thriller writers, and that's Sienna and Malcolm. Even though Sienna is the one that actually writes the books, Malcolm is the face on the jacket and has the right look and feel of being the author. So they are the author of their series. And then they are getting to the island of Arthur Fletch. And when they get there, somebody else has opened the door, and her name is Millie. And that's really all I know. Arthur Fletch is a best-selling author, and from what I know of what other people have said, because I'm not really going to read this, sounds like he's alive, but my understanding from what people were saying that he's already dead. 6 different authors are being invited to his island to finish his last book in his famous series. Then it's sort of like, and then there were none-ish type storyline. They start unaliving. Whoever is left is going to write, I don't know. We'll see. You get where I'm going with that, right? So right now I don't know if Arthur Fletch is alive or if he's not. It sounds like he is, because we'll find out. Again, I'm only on page 16. But this is due in 5 days, so this is the one I am going to do. I will show you my jigsaw puzzle, and that's what I'm going to sit here and do while I am listening to this. I keep the book handy. I did that so I could remember whose names were who. I wanted to really know who the characters are. I'm trying to pay attention. These are the 3 books. 1 really old, 2 really new. I can't wait. I'm actually really excited about these. I will fill you in probably when I get to about halfway point, which will probably be tomorrow. I would give you an update. I am about 40% of the way through. The ending writes itself, Evelyn Clark, and really nothing's happening. Nothing is happening. Each chapter is sort of from a different author's point of view. We're getting to know the authors, and so we see what they've published and why they're all mid-list authors. We're basically learning more about them and how they became mid-list and all that. But as far as the intrigue, nothing's really happening. We're mostly following Sienna. Sienna is the wife of Malcolm, and they are the team that writes their series. So the different authors, the team of Sienna and Malcolm. There's Kate, which I told you about before. There's Priscilla. There's Jackson, and there's Kenzo. And I like Kenzo. I like Priscilla. Oh, and then Millie. Sorry, I forgot Millie. Millie I talked about before. We've also met the agent and the editor. They just did like a little spiel, and then they're not at the main house. They have the manuscript written by Arthur Fletch. They're supposed to be writing the last 10,000 words-ish, because Arthur Fletch had a very strict word count. They're supposed to be working on it, but really they're just sort of like getting to know each other. It's actually a little boring, but I have the feeling stuff is about to happen. So I've been reading along for the most part, but I kind of need to get some stuff done. So I am today's a housekeeping day. So I need to I've been doing laundry. I need to get the kitchen done, and I actually need to run over to the library. I am going to put this on audio. I'm probably going to up the speed. I know who's who. I get a sense of their voice and all that. Right now, not loving it. If I were to rate this right now, I would give it about a 3.25. It's not bad. It's just, again, nothing is happening. And that's at 40%. Hopefully something's going to happen soon. I will finish this. I'm fairly sure I'll finish this, and I'll finish it pretty quickly. But yeah. That's about it. I do want to sit down later today and read another couple of chapters of this, whether or not I finished it. All right, I need to get to work. Okay, I feel like I say it every time, but it has been a couple of days. But that's because that was a day, 2 days ago. We'll go with 2 days. Instead of reading this, I did a big chunk of this that same day. Got a bunch of housework done, all that good stuff. Got a bunch of puzzle done, all that good stuff. But then I stopped. And what I did instead was clean up my Goodreads. Now, I had done this before, and I had removed 20 books from my Goodreads list, my want to read, and felt very proud of myself for getting rid of 20 books. And then I watched Jamie's video when it was brand new and how she went through Goodreads, and I was very proud of myself thinking, oh, that's a good, because when I had done it, I'm like, oh, I could record this, and I didn't. And then I was like, at least I know that I'm on the right track. If Jamie is doing it, then I'm on the right track. Then I watched it that day. I watched Freya. She said she got that idea from Jamie. I watched her episode where she went through and cleaned up her Goodreads. And I'm like, you know what? I really need to do mine too, again. But I liked, even though I had already done it, I had left it with the 6 images wide. And I liked the individual image. And so I went through and I removed 61 books from my Goodreads. I mostly did it by, there were quite a few that I had put on as I wanted to read them because I was hoping to get the free book. And I didn't. Some of them also just had low ratings and I'm like, I just don't think I'm ever actually going to read it, those kind of books. Now some of the ones that I still feel like I may never read, but I left on there are the Newbery winners. I might go through and remove those one day soon. We'll see. So I got rid of 61 books, but I still have 556 books on my Goodreads. Well, it took me a couple of hours, but I mean, really, I was watching Gilmore Girls with it too. It was the episodes about Luke's sister's wedding, leading up to it and the day of the wedding. I liked that. That was kind of fun. So I was doing that while watching Gilmore Girls. And then the next day I finished this. That was yesterday. Doesn't seem like it. My notes on this. The Ending Writes Itself by Evelyn Clark. I know everybody else has mentioned it, but in case you haven't heard, Evelyn Clark is a pseudonym for V.E. Schwab, who I have read. I read the Addie LaRue book, but I have no idea who Kat Clark is. Apparently other people do. I looked at her books. One of them looks vaguely familiar, but I had never heard of her before. But they wrote this together, which I think is a really interesting idea. And I'm always curious as to how they do that. So my thoughts on this. I liked it. I thought it was okay. It had a few problems. Like, first off, I'm going to use bad guy. To me, guy is gender neutral. The bad guy seemed obvious, and I was completely right. Well, I left off, I said I was at about 40%. I was at 41%. And I said that something was about to happen. I would say probably right at 42%, something started happening. So it got very interesting very soon after I spoke to you last. Then it died down again. Or it didn't really. It just, what was happening, I didn't feel was very interesting. I don't know how to put this I don't want to give anything away. There were no big surprises. There's one little surprise, but it was still pretty good. I thought it was okay. So, boring first 40%. After that, it kind of picks up. Obvious bad guy. There are things about it that I did like. There's one chapter in here that reminded me very much of How to Kill a Guy in 10 Dates. And if you've read that, then you might know what I mean by the chapter. Again, I'm not going to say anything about it. I liked the format of this. You were basically following one person for several chapters. And so it would be, like I said before, we're mainly following Sienna. Sienna, chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3. And then maybe it was, Malcolm. I'm just going to throw out Sienna and Malcolm are the married couple, and they write as Penn Stoneley. And then there's Kate, Millie, Priscilla, Jackson, and Kenzo. So those are the six authors, which one author is really 2 people. And they're on the Scottish island. So that's the other thing, is that it's on an island, it's very isolated, Scottish island even, it's a castle. Some of the tropey things were just a little bit too common, too easy, too overdone, and I barely even read the thriller genre, so, and zero thrill, basically. Yeah, I would say there is 0% thriller in this. So very good if you're a beginner. This is a good beginner thriller. It is suddenly getting dark. I did like the structure of the book. and getting to know the characters. I also really liked the commentary on the publishing life, what it's like to be a published author trying to get your books published and the struggles that they go through, because that's not something that we hear about, or at least I haven't, because I haven't read a lot of books about authors. So I liked that too. One thing I thought was interesting is the narrator, which I'm not going to take any points off for the narrator, but the narrator mispronounced a few words, and I even double checked in the book. There were a lot of times that I was reading along with it, though not enough to actually count it. And I'm way behind in my reading books, physically reading books. I thought that was really interesting that they didn't catch that in editing while recording, that she was mispronouncing some words. I thought that was interesting. I think I'm going to rate it 3.25. I might bump it up to 3.5, but it really was very, like I said, the first 40% was pretty boring. It wasn't until then that stuff started happening. So I'm going to leave it at 3.25. Yeah, I'm glad I read it. And I went in, I very purposefully went in with low expectations. I can't even blame it on that. So after finishing The Ending Writes Itself, which I did early in the morning, I picked up Motherhood, Second Oldest Profession to try and continue on. It is dated, so it's a little bit hard for me to sit down and actually read. But I did sit for probably 45 minutes plus a couple of quick one chapters at a time. So I'm a little bit more than halfway. It's okay. I can see why this would have been funny in its time, but now is just dated. It's really driven me to pick up Meet the Newmans, which I ended up doing a good chunk. I did about 20% yesterday, and today I spent a good chunk of my time on it. So I'm going to work on finishing Motherhood, and I'm going to work on finishing this, but let's go into Meet the Newmans. Jennifer Niven, and it starts off in chapter 1. We're kind of introduced to the family. The Newmans is an old black and white show. It's 1964. It's actually March 20th, 1964. Dinah is the mother, Del is the father, Guy is the older son, and Shep is the younger son. So Guy doesn't live in the house anymore. He actually lives in the apartment above the garage, it sounds like. In the first chapter, Dinah is waiting for Del to come home, and we see that Del is he's the writer, he's the producer, he's the director, and of course it stars Del Newman. They are playing themselves on a TV show, and they have been doing it since the 50s, and the kids have grown up doing this, and now they are basically adults, both of them. The 1964 is not the same as the 50s, and there's the women's movement and diversity and all these other things that are not playing into the show. The show is not doing well. The ratings are tanking. The first chapter, she's waiting for Del to come home. And I'm not giving anything away because it's all in the description. The prologue ends with her getting a phone call, it says Del's been in an accident. And so then it starts with chapter 1, 24 hours before. And then it's like 15 hours before, and then 14 hours before. And so I got to that first day, I got to the next day. And that was about 30%. I am now, I took my bookmark out, but I'm now about 50% of the way. And here's what I think is interesting. It is a commentary on women's roles and trying to be in the workforce, and has brought up so many issues, little issues, and it reminded me of both of these together, have reminded me of like my first job when the men that I worked for, I was actually like a student secretary when I was in college, and they would call me sweetie and honey and darling. They were nice. They didn't mean anything by it. Brought that up. And then like in the 90s, I had another job. It was all of us women working together in this one business. And then they hired a guy, and he got paid $2 an hour more than what I was getting paid, what any of us were getting paid, because he was a guy and he had a family to support, even though I was putting my husband through school. And that's not even in the 60s. I'm talking 80s and 90s. It's really brought up a lot of feelings. In some ways, especially for this, since this is nonfiction, it doesn't feel relevant because we've made huge strides. And most women work. Now they aren't expected to stay home. Makes me really appreciate what the women of the 60s and 70s did for us women. I guess that's where I want to go with that. So, and then there is one other character in this besides the Newman family. There's Juliet. And Juliet is, I don't remember how old she is. I want to say she's a 20-something. And she wants to be a reporter. She works for the LA Times. And again, it's 1964. And so we follow her a little bit. It does say in the synopsis that she's going to help Dinah write an episode. She's really into the women's rights movement. She wants change, and she hates Dinah and the Newmans for holding women back. But she doesn't really. She likes her personally. She just doesn't like the show. I'm just really rooting for the two of them, and I am really, really enjoying this. I need to start editing, and I need to finish this, and I need to finish this. But I think that these two books go together. I'm glad I put them together. Yeah, I'll see you tomorrow. I'm going to try and finish this tonight. It's 11 o'clock in the morning and I am tired. As I mentioned before, I am in the thick of the busyness for these 15 days. Almost done, only a couple more days. Doesn't help that I keep adding extra things onto my plate, but that's all right. Like the day before yesterday, I think it was, I decided to clean up a shelf. I have two bookcases actually right above us upstairs. They're old, they're ugly, they're warped and all that, so they're up there. And I went through and cleaned out some books that I want to unhaul. So I have quite an unhaul coming up. I'm going to try and do another Napa trip, little free libraries, whatever, same thing. But yeah, instead of doing this stuff, I was doing that stuff, which is fine. It's all good. This morning I got up super early. I made 6 dozen cookies. I'm going to a retirement party today in just a little while. I've got editing to do, especially this. My throat still catches, even though that was quite a while ago. I did not prepare what I was going to say, but I think that's okay. I've covered everything mostly anyway. So the ending writes itself. I feel like I came across really harsh, and I mildly stand by that. It was entertaining, but I am giving it a 3.25. I enjoyed listening to it. Motherhood, second oldest profession. I have a few bookmarks, but on reflection, I don't think that any of them are really all that interesting. One of them was about how children get everything for free. This one was how anxious parents are to get their kids married off. Again, it was old, it was dated, but you know what? Reading it at the same time as Meet the Newmans really was a really good pairing. I'm not going to recommend this. I think ultimately I'm going to give it a 3. Like I said, it's dated. I don't know anybody I don't even know if you can get this anymore. But I am glad I read that. That is something my mother enjoyed. I can see how it was funny in its day. It's also a 26 and 26 book. So, great. And then Meet the Newmans is my favorite. I gave it 4.5. It's not really quite a 4.5 for me, but it's not as low as a 4.25. So maybe like 4 1/3. I have to pick my own numbers. I'm sorry, I'm a problem child. So in Goodreads, I gave it a 4. Because, again, I didn't feel like the 4.5 bumped it up enough to be a 5-star read. I did really enjoy this, but I think you have to enjoy character-driven with character growth and, of course, like historical and all that. I grew up watching those shows, had I don't want to say a love-hate I did enjoy some of them, especially when I was little. But I do remember asking my mom, why is it that the father knows best when he's barely ever there? And she said, exactly. We had a number of conversations about some of those shows. To read a book based on one of those kind of shows, I really enjoyed that. I was really rooting for the women in this book. Because Dell was, and I'm not spoiling anything, because Dell was in the hospital, they had to take over. Dinah, Guy, and Shep had to start doing things on their own and start doing things they wanted to do. Though Dinah hadn't wanted to learn about finance and how to get sponsors and all of that. It was all thrust upon her because her husband was in the hospital because of the accident. And the show must go on, which is what he had taught them, but he had always taken care of everything. So it was really fun to watch her growth in Meet the Newmans. So yeah, I'm going to stand by my 4.5 and I'm going to go edit this video. Did you ever watch any of those shows? Even like Leave It to Beaver, which is still on all the time. So thank you for hanging out with me. I really do appreciate it, and I'll see you next time. Bye.